I went to my daughter's house on Thanksgiving Day without informing her I was going. I spotted her grandson shivering outside in 15 degrees weather, sporting shorts and a t-shirt on. Everyone in the family was inside, eating turkey and joking at the Christmas table in the sun. I kicked them down because they had let me down. They opened the door and said 6 words that made their cheeks go pale. But that was all. The beginning of the justice that would make their lives better forever. Please sign up for the before we go any further. Please leave a message with the time where you are right now. My phone buzzed on the wheel. Writing. From the next door. I spotted police cars at the Hendersons again. What's going on at home? I thought about you and your family a lot. I glanced at those words while my old Chevy sat in the garage. This family. Martha also worried about their child when she was still living. To worry about anything. Anyway. It was only me and the awful feeling I got when I thought about Leona's nuptials. It was 2:30. It's time to go. I placed the car in reverse and backed out onto Street Miller. An hour ago, it started to snow. Fat flakes that adhered to everything and made the roadway slippery. Not safe. The radio was screaming weather advisories as I pulled into I-75. Heading south to Cincinnati. The same classic rock station that Martha and I always listen to. Pay attention to. Led Zeppelin was playing something heavy that fit my mood. There were 2 gift bags in the passenger seat. One that cost more than I wanted to spend on real leather and had a brand new baseball glove for Amos. The other one was funny. Since he was 12, he had been reading comic books. He is now 18 years old. They undoubtedly believed he was too old for them, but I assumed he was 18. Reading about heroes is fun for people of all ages. Family means everything. Martha would respond, "We have left," when I complained about Christmas visits. She was correct then, and she is now today. Even though I could only remember her voice, it felt like she was with us at every meeting after she died 6 months ago. The windshield wipers struggled to clear the snow off the window, while other cars moved slowly behind them. The caution lights flashed like startled beetles when I was doing approximately half the speed limit. I kept the pace at 40 miles per hour and held onto the wheel with both hands. If I were stopped in a ditch, I wouldn't be able to travel to Cincinnati at all. The exit signs told you how far it was to Cincinnati. I called Leona's. I called the house to let them know I would be there. I believed it would be better to catch them off guard than just show up. It was odd that the phone rang 6 times before going to voicemail. There was usually someone there. As I drove home on Thanksgiving afternoon, I saw a gas station through the snow. Its brilliant neon lights lit up the night. I drove in, filled up the tank, and walked inside to grab some. It was a cloudy afternoon. Amos wanted a bag of those peppermints and some coffee. The young cashier, who seemed fatigued, shook his head at the. He looked at my stuff and said, "Weather. Roads are getting worse by the hour. Are you traveling far? Only to Cincinnati? Family? Dinner? Watch out there. Today, I've already seen 3 accidents." I looked at the time again and noticed that it was 3:05 p.m. It generally took 45 minutes to get there. But today, it seemed more like an hour. I thought about Amos, who was probably in the kitchen assisting his mom. I watched football with Wilbur. The child had grown a lot since we fished in Lake Erie in the summer. That day, he played first base and looked like he had won the award. That's when I noticed the bruise on his arm. He had been silent and murmured something about falling off his bike, but the mark didn't appear right. It was too precise. It looked too much like fingers. I should have asked more questions and pushed harder. Martha would have known what to do. The snow remained falling as I reached exit 15 and drove toward Leona's area. 2-story homes with pumpkins and fall flowers on the front yards fill the streets in the suburbs. Some of them were already lighted up and glowing through the snow. I became Maple Grove. I drove gently past houses in the area where families were undoubtedly eating and telling stories. And passing the plates. The bright light that came through the windows produced golden squares. With snow on the lawn. Today was supposed to be a fantastic day for healing. I could see Leona Street in front of me and her house at the end of the block. The blue lights would have enjoyed that. The house had 2 floors and windows that were white. There was smoke rising from the chimney and Wilbur's pickup was parked next to her car in the driveway. There were decorations for the holidays on the front entrance, and everything seemed regular, even calm. As I drove near, I slowed down the truck. I could already see the look of astonishment on their faces when I knocked on the door as I walked up. Amos might run over and hug me. He used to do things with me when he was a kid. Maybe this Thanksgiving can help our family grow better, like. Martha had always believed it was possible. I parked behind Wilbur's pickup in the driveway. As the engine cooled down, it made a ticking sound. I could see Christmas lights surrounding the front door and hear soft music coming from within as it snowed. I felt at home in the house, like I was in a Norman Rockwell painting. Then I saw him. Amos was bent over on the front stairs with his arms about his legs. He wasn't wearing a coat or a hat. His long-sleeved shirt and slacks were already covered in snow. His shoulders shook. I said Jesus Christ under my breath as I opened the truck door. The wind was frigid, yet it wasn't just cold. It smacked me in the face like a slap and had ice crystals in it that hurt. I got to him in a flash. He kept his hands close to his body to stay warm, and you could see that his lips had turned blue. Amos. The road was slick, but I hurried across it to yell, "What are you doing out here?" He looked up and saw His eyes were so happy that they almost shattered my heart. His skin was pale, almost colorless, and there were red spots on his cheeks where Grandpa, his voice was hard to hear. The cold had really gotten to him. He had to clench his teeth so tightly that he could hardly talk. "I can't," he replied. I took off my thick winter coat and threw it around his shoulders before he could finish his thought. He was shaking like a leaf in a storm and was terribly cold. "What do you think?" "What do you mean you can't?" I helped him stand up and kept his legs up when they were about to give up. "How long have you been?" "I can't sit outside like this." He drew my coat tight about himself, and I could feel him shaking. "I can't go inside because the fabric is so thick." The words strike me like a punch. Behind us, I could hear people laughing and a TV through the well-lit windows. It seemed like a family party with a nice glow. "What do you mean?" My grandson sat on the front steps and froze like he was being punished. I didn't mean for my voice to be so harsh, but I was getting angrier inside. I said, "This is your home," and there was fire in my chest. Amos flinched at how I said it, so I quickly lowered my voice. "Please don't make it worse for me," he implored, glancing uncomfortably at her. He didn't need another adult yelling at him. "Please, Grandpa, if Wilbur hears you," I pleaded as I stared toward the front door. I glanced at my house again. I truly looked at it. The lights, the decorations, and the noise from the party. Youngster, shaking and with scarlet lips, wearing garments that wouldn't keep him warm in 50 degrees weather, let alone this close to freezing. It was a frigid nightmare. "How long, Amos?" I inquired in a firm but soft voice. "Have you been out here?" He wouldn't look at me. "This has been going on since this morning." "Good morning." I checked my watch and noticed that it was 3:15. "Son, it's extremely cold outdoors. Possibly die from the cold." I couldn't worry him more than he already was, so I tried the front door. Of course, it was locked. On Thanksgiving Day, they had locked him out of his own house and left him to figure things out on his own. While they were eating their Christmas dinner, they got cold. "We need to get you warm," I said as I led him to my pickup. I said, "Let's get you in the cab where it's warm." But while I moved to defend him, I wasn't thinking about him. I kept track of things, such how he flinched when I talked to him and the bruises I observed on him when we were fishing. He looked like he knew how to conceal and be small since he took such careful steps. "This wasn't Amos," I said as I assisted him into the passenger seat, "this was the first time. It was a pattern. I put you in the hot seat and turned the heat up to 11. What occurred today?" I wrapped Amos with another blanket from my emergency kit at full blast. He couldn't move his hands because they were so chilly. I put them between my hands and attempted to warm them up because he couldn't grip anything well. "Talk to." I was becoming mad, but I stayed calm and asked, "Son, what happened this morning?" He looked down at his shaking hands and answered, "I was helping my mom with the turkey. She asked me to check on it while she took a shower," he stated in a quiet, embarrassed voice. "I forgot to turn off the oven timer. When I took it out to baste it, the top got a bit browned." "That's all you forgot, to set a timer?" When he finally glanced at me, I could sense terror in his eyes. Wilbur came in and saw it, and he just lost it. My mouth clenched. How had I lost it? I yelled about how I'd fouled up the. They stated the guests would think Mom couldn't cook and that I was a pain for the family. Amos pulled some. He then ordered me to think about what I had done and that I couldn't go back inside until I did. I had learned how to be responsible. What about your mother? The question was harder than I thought it would be. Amos glanced at me. She tried to say anything at first, but Wilbur advised her not to because it was just between us. That was it. She didn't say anything else. I checked my watch again. It was 3:20. Amos, what time did this happen? What happened? It happened for 4.5 hours today, starting at 11 a.m. Severe weather that could kill someone over a turkey that was just slightly charred and probably still tasted nice. I had to take a few shots. I had to take a few big breaths before I could talk without yelling. Has this happened before? Was a query that hung in the air. He seemed to be having a hard time deciding whether or not to give me the truth. He was probably thinking about what would happen if he did. He thinks about how much agony it will cause him to be honest and how happy it will make him to finally have someone to talk to. Dad warned me in a whisper anytime I did something bad. For example, last month I forgot to take out the garbage, so Dad made me stay in the garage all night. One time, Dad kept me in the basement for 2 days because I accidentally shattered one of his beer bottles. It hit me hard. I glanced at my grandson, who is a clever, nice guy who never hurt anyone, and the way he stood up straight made me think he recognized that taking up too much space is terrible. Your mom knows this, and she thinks Wilbur is simply trying to help me learn. He said, maybe she's right, in a shaky voice. Maybe I'm just don't. You shouldn't blame yourself for this. What that man is doing to you is not your responsibility. It's not punishment, it's abuse, and it will stop today. Amos' eyes got incredibly large. Don't panic. Grandpa, please don't make a scene. If you do, he'll take it out on me. I could see the house through the window. It was still warm and welcoming, full of life. My daughter was serving dinner to guests inside while her grandson from a previous marriage sat outside in the cold. They were trapped in a vehicle and too afraid to ask for basic human respect. Listen to me, I said. She took his hands again and said, you are 18 years old. You don't have to keep living this way, and I won't let you. Thanks. But where would I go? I don't have any money. I can't pay for college without it. I'll take you home. Tonight. The option seemed evident as I talked. We'll figure out the rest after lunch. His face suggested that he was split between dread and hope. Hope that maybe he was finally going to receive assistance. He was scared because he had learnt not to think that things could actually get better. Better, Amos remarked in a low voice. He won't let me leave. He's going to call the cops, I muttered. I think you stole something or are holding me hostage. I looked at the home again, this time at the Christmas lights and the pleasant air. I felt something hard and cold settle in my chest as I looked at the decor. Martha had. I've always been the one in the family who kept the peace by being kind and understanding. But Martha wasn't here anymore, and being nice didn't keep my grandson safe for 4 hours in weather that was almost freezing. Please. I opened the door to the truck and added, don't worry about Wilbur. We're going to get your things right now. I went outside. I could hear Amos running behind me to catch up as my boots crunched on the new snow. I still had my coat on. I embraced Amos and put my arms around his shoulders. The front door was still closed, but I wasn't going to knock. My hands were shaking again, but not because it was cold. They were shaking because I was so mad. When you finally see the complete image, it hits you like a freight train. Why didn't you tell me it was? Is this bad? I inquired as I examined more closely at his face. Now as I looked attentively, I could see faint bruises along. I tried to see his jawline, but it was hard to see because of the shadows and the cold, red skin. He muttered and pulled my coat tighter, but you always talk to Mom, and she. The recollection hit me like a ton of bricks. Last month, while I was cooking dinner, Amos contacted me. His voice was weak and unsteady. Grandpa Wilbur says he can't no longer have dinner with them. Says I have to work hard to get back to the table. I laughed it off. I thought it was teen drama. When I contacted Leona the next day, She didn't seem to care as much as she had before. Marrying Wilbur. Dad, you're being too over the top. It's simply a normal family. Discipline. Amos usually goes too far with things. You know how teens are. One more. The memory came back. Call in the summer. Amos sounds tired. Mom. Wilbur yelled. For leaving the dishes in the sink again. Because of him, I had to wash every dish in the house twice, when I asked Leona about. After that, she let out a sigh of sadness. The guy is merely being emotional. Wilbur's. Attempting to show him how to be responsible. How long has he been rude to you? I asked, even though a part of me already. I knew the response would hurt me. 3 years ago, my mom married him. Amos's voice was hard to hear. At first, they only made me do things again if they were wrong. Things became worse. I thought of the fishing vacation we went last summer, when Amos didn't want to leave and was asking if we might stay another day. When I asked him about it, he just shrugged and said he liked being on the lake. But I could see it now. In a different way. The way he got quiet when I said I would drive him back. The darkness that crossed his face when he talked about the beginning of school. The underground stuff, I told you, the pieces. Putting together clicks. You told me you slept in the garage. How many times? A lot of them. He was. I could see how embarrassed he was by looking at his hands. Last winter, he shut me out because I failed to shovel the street. I slept in your truck when you came to see me on Christmas Eve. My automobile. He slept in my truck on Christmas Eve while I drank eggnog and thought about how much fun it would be to spend the holiday with my family. We were having. I felt like remorse was hitting me. I looked at the house, where pleasant light came from every window and door. I heard a faint sound of laughter when I peeked out the window. A lovely festive picture in the neighborhood, and my grandson was almost frozen too. Death in front of the house. Your mom knows all of this. Amos said yes. Not at all. She believes that Wilbur is simply trying to help me become a better person. I need to learn how to not be so sensitive and follow the rules. Things were getting furious and hot now. I could feel it in my chest, like my view got sharper and narrower. Martha always advised me to stay calm, said to count to 10 before I did anything when I felt like this. Martha wasn't here, so my granddaughter couldn't count, and it wouldn't assist him. I got out of bed. Amos is still in my coat, all bundled up. Let's go inside. Hey Grandpa. No way. Please don't make a scene, or he will. I saw you. Him totally. Make you sleep outside in the cold. Hit you and make you hungry? My voice sounded like it was growing worse. Dear son, things can't get any worse than they are now. Amos looked at the front door with terrified eyes. You don't know how mad he gets when someone challenges him. But I was. My grandson is following me to the house, but he doesn't want to. The front door looked like it would hold up well and every part of Wilbur's immaculate suburban castle, which cost a lot of money, demonstrates how happy he is. I didn't bother to knock. I kicked the door adjacent to the lock with all the strength I could muster. 68 years old, but worked in industries for a long time. Had made me stronger than most guys my age. The wood made a crack that could be heard all the way through the door banged shut so fiercely that it smacked the wall in the neighborhood. We could feel the warm air rushing out to greet us. The sound of shock and the sensation of a turkey roast. When I opened the front door, Amos was right behind me. Noticed something that made me pause in my tracks. The dining room table looked like it belonged in a magazine. White. The light shone on the tablecloth, the candles, and the crystal glasses. Wilbur took a seat. He sat at the head of the table with a cutting knife in one hand and a button-down shirt that had been ironed. Next to him, Leona was wearing a green outfit. I had never seen her clothing before, and her hair was done so perfectly. A female who is younger. A 10-year-old girl sat across from them with a forkful of mashed potatoes practically in her mouth. They were all frozen. It appeared like someone had stopped the beautiful holiday moment in the middle of it. I felt like I had been hit by a ton of bricks. They were comfortable and toasty where they were seated. Amos had been outside in the cold for more than 4 hours while they ate. The turkey was a lovely color and pretty, and perhaps the one that Amos was alleged to have shattered. The house was clean and peaceful, just like it should be for a family Thanksgiving. Everything but that they let a kid freeze outside. "Have you completely lost your minds?" was heard loud and clear. The small girl dropped her fork and it made a loud noise. Leona's face turned as white as paper, and the spoon in. When she smacked the table with her fist, gravy splattered all over the white cloth. "Hey, Dad?" Leona yelled. "Squeak. What are you doing here? How did you get here?" "While you're eating like a king," the boy was. I stared right at Amos, who was still wearing my coat and trembling even though it was warm outside. 4. Leona, he was outside for 4 hours in terrible weather that may have killed him. Wilbur slowly said. He laid down his knife and got up from his chair. He was bigger than I anticipated. He weighed approximately 50 pounds more than me, yet I was. When I was younger, I got into a few fights. Size didn't necessarily matter when you were upset enough. "Who gave you? Can you come inside my house?" His voice was steady yet unsteady, like a man who wasn't used to being heard. "Requested to do. You are breaking the law by being on this private land." I could see him measuring me and considering if he might be able to terrify me into giving up. He walked around the table and puffed up his chest a little to get to us. The dangerous pride of someone who had their own land. "Own your own land?" I went up to him and said, "That place where you left my grandson outside to freeze while you ate dinner?" The younger daughter cried because she was afraid and confused by the yelling. Leona reached out to help. She stared at me, but her eyes never left mine. I could see the trouble there. Wilbur remarked, "This is a private family matter," which made her choose between sticking up for her husband and her father. "Your voice is getting louder. And you don't have any business?" "Not a business?" My face was getting hot. "That's my. You almost killed my grandchild over a family quarrel." Behind me, Amos. I pushed him closer, and I could feel him shaking. It wasn't just because it was cold, they were afraid of what was going to happen. No one had probably ever stood up to Wilbur in his own home before, but we all knew it was going to happen soon. It was horrible. Holiday music was still playing softly in the background. It was a nice song about being grateful for friends and family. Being together. The humor might have been funny if I hadn't been so angry that I could hardly see straight. I pointed straight out. I kept my finger still at Amos, even though I was mad. "Wilbur, look at him." "Really? Look at what you've done." Wilbur crossed his arms and lifted his chin. Every part of the man who thought he was right in his. The youngster ruined our trip. He needed to learn a lesson about being responsible and what happens when you don't. I nearly didn't believe what I heard. "You almost murdered a child by freezing them over a turkey that was only a little bit burnt. 18, not a kid. And these are the rules for my house." Wilbur's voice transformed into. When guys think they're being fair, they use that tone of voice. I'm trying to show him how to act. Something that his mother plainly didn't do for the first 17 years of his existence. Leona jumped back. They didn't say anything, though. She sat there in her green dress and looked between us like she was at a tennis match instead of a fight to protect her son. "Stick to it." I stepped. It was near enough to see the grease on Wilbur's plate and the wine stain on his lips. "That's what they call child." "I'm sorry, I'm not calling the police right now to report the abuse." Wilbur chuckled as I said that. It was a frigid sound that made. He smashed a $20 turkey because he forgot to turn off a timer. "It makes my skin crawl." I sent. He stepped outside to think about what he did. "That's not abuse, it's just being a parent." It was 5 degrees outside for 4 hours. As usual, he's being overdramatic. "Wilbur." He waved his hand away like he was trying to get rid of a fly. "Look at him. He's fine. A cold doesn't affect anyone." I looked at Amos, who was still wearing my coat and had blue lips and a quivering body. Okay. This guy thought I was okay with being cold. "Dad, please." Leona eventually spoke up, but her voice was scratchy. "Don't. We can talk about this as a family later. You ruined your vacation?" I turned around and stared at my daughter. You were worried about me while your son sat outside in the cold and ate dinner. She couldn't look up from her dish to meet my eyes. She was ruining your trip. Wilbur was only teaching Amos how to be responsible. Boys need strong direction. Firm direction? My voice trembled with amazement. Leona, when you... Did I keep you outside in the snow when you were 18 and wrecked my truck? Did I make you get lousy grades in math? Do you want to sleep in the garage? She whispered, that's different. How is it different? Wilbur walked in front of us with an angry face that was red. I have to keep this house tidy, even though Amos isn't my true kid. I can punish him any way I want. That was the genuine truth. Amos didn't care that the kid was in the open because he wasn't his blood. You have 30 seconds to say you're sorry to my grandson, I replied. It's just a pain that needs to be dealt with and punished. 30 seconds to show some basic human decency, I added, but my voice was very low. This time Wilbur's laugh was even colder. I don't owe the kid anything. He can find another one if he doesn't like my rules. They need to find another place to live. The girl was crying harder, and Leona was attempting to calm her down. I could barely hear them, though. All I could see was Wilbur's smug expression. I couldn't stop thinking about Amos sitting on those steps for 4 hours, thinking he deserved it. To live somewhere else. I stepped up to Wilbur even more, near enough to smell the wine on his breath. That's true, he's leaving. To move somewhere else. When I took out my cell phone, it was in the pocket of my jacket. My thumb was on a keypad. The move was intentional and slow enough for everyone in the room to observe what I was doing. When Wilbur saw the phone, his face transformed. He was proud and disdainful. It was only a bit broken around the edges. You have to say sorry to my grandson right now, I told him in a very calm voice. Or I tell the Child Protection Services about this abuse. You wouldn't be brave. Wilbur got closer to me and tried to terrify me by being bigger than me. But I had fought bigger guys than him before, and I wasn't going to back down from someone who injured my family. Go ahead and try me. Putting in the first number. I'm going to tell them a lot about how bad it is to leave an 18-year-old outside in the cold. For 4 hours. Amos gripped my arm from behind. I could feel him shaking, but not. It was a different kind of fear, the kind that made them more afraid when they stood up. Things became worse. Dad, please. Leona eventually moved and stood between us and her. She put her hands up like she was trying to break up a brawl in a bar. Please don't hurt our family over this. Nothing is getting broken. I couldn't stop looking at Wilbur. He did it to hurt my grandson. Abuse? Wilbur laughed loudly. He was angry and bitter. I was teaching him how to be responsible, which his weak mother never accomplished. Leona. He jerked like if he had hit her, but she didn't fight back. She probably always did that, she just stood there and took it. Old man, get out of my house. Wilbur's voice got louder as he went on. You don't have any power here. Amos is mine. Do something now. What do you have to do? I looked around the dining room, which was just right. I gazed at the holiday display, the crystal glasses, and the exquisite china. Then I looked back at my grandson's hurt face. Do you feel this way? Take care of responsibility? Letting youngsters freeze outside. The younger daughter was crying more now because the shouts startled and puzzled her. Leona tried to calm her, but her eyes kept leaving her. She was watching a tennis match between Wilbur and me, and she said, he's 18 years old, not a child. Wilbur remarked, with his shoulders back. Adults who can't follow simple commands get in trouble at my house. There will be adult penalties if you neglect to turn off a timer. Adults will be penalized for being careless and breaking things, ruining our holiday, and making our family appear terrible in public. There were guests, and Wilbur pointed to the empty chairs where family members had been sitting before I got there. Everyone had to leave because of the ruckus he caused. When I saw those vacant chairs, I felt another piece of the parts of the puzzle fell together. They had visitors, and as Amos ate supper, others talked and hung out. They had all been outside in the cold and not uttered a word or asked why. Grandpa, let's just go, Amos said. Please, I don't want to make things worse, he whispered in a low voice behind me. The sense of failure in his voice broke something. I felt horrible inside that this educated, caring young man had been hurt so horribly. He felt so horrible that he thought he was the problem and that his simple appeal for kindness from others was making things worse. When I looked back at my son Wilbur, I exclaimed, "You never were causing problems." Everyone could hear it. "You have 30 seconds to say sorry to my grandson for what you did today." The choice made me feel cold. Wilbur crossed his arms and raised his chin. "I'm not sorry for anything," he muttered. "And I'm not taking it back either. That's all for now." A cruel old man is giving commands because he can't accept that his grandson needs to learn a lesson. I placed the phone down and put it back in my pocket. "Amos, get your things." I told them, "You're coming home with me." Leona shouted, "You can't just take him." It was so loud that even the small child stopped weeping for a second. "Watch me," I murmured in a voice that was almost a whisper. I laid a strong hand on Amos' shoulder and added, "Go pack whatever you need," I said as I pulled him away from the table and up the stairs. I said, "We're leaving. Dad." Leona ran after us, her voice getting louder with terror. "You can't just walk into our house and take my—" "Yes, son, I can and I am." I kept going, staying between Amos and the rest of the family, "Unless you'd rather I call the police and let them deal with it." Amos went first up the narrow steps. He moved quickly and unsteadily up to the second level. I could hear Wilbur's heavy footsteps on the floorboards behind us. Wilbur cried, "This is kidnapping. I'll have you arrested for kidnapping." "Good," I responded. I made it to the top. Good luck explaining to the police why my grandson sat outside in 5 degrees weather for 4 hours. They took Amos down the stairs and into a little room in the back of the home. The room was simply. There was room for a twin bed and a tiny desk in the room. I couldn't locate a heat vent, and the lone window looked north. It was the worst room in the home. It didn't even look like a bedroom, it looked more like a storage room. It let in the cold air. "This is where you sleep?" I inquired, glancing at the few objects that were there in the empty walls. Amos agreed, already taking items off the dresser and placing them in a duffel bag. "Wilbur says that the basement room is for guests and my sister lives in the opposite room on the second level." I saw that he didn't call her. He was unusual even in his own household. "Take my sister, simply my sister." I told him, "Everything that's important to you," as I stood at the door and watched him pack. "We're not coming back for." Leona murmured something as she walked down the corridor, her face soaked with tears. "Amos, think about what you're doing. This." Amos remarked, "This is your home, your family," as he folded a Dayton. "A few family members. Real families don't leave their kids outside to freeze," he said as he put his college sweater in his luggage. Wilbur was just not acting like himself. "Teaching you to be responsible gives me the chills," Amos told his mother. I saw 3 things in his eyes. Years of pain and disappointment in his eyes. "Mom, he made me sleep in the garage last week because I left a glass there." Leona's face screwed up. "A glass? That's not normal," she remarked. "He is. He just expects a lot from himself. He wants you to improve." "Amos, he wants me to go," whispered softly as he zipped up his luggage. "You already know this." Wilbur was already there when we got back downstairs. Like a guard. "Get out of my house, boy. You never return." "Okay, then." For the first time all day, I could hear true strength in Amos's words as he talked to me. It appeared like I had kicked in the front door, but it was still unlocked. Bringing chilly air into the house and making the decorations for the holidays move around like fading leaves. It was still going, and I could see my pickup parked in the driveway, ability to be seen in the frigid air. As we went to the door, Leona yelled out to Amos, "Don't do this." He turned around and said, "I love you," to his mother one last time. "If you loved me, you shouldn't have let this happen, Mom." We didn't say anything as we walked to my pickup. "You can see your breath in the frigid air." I helped him get in the car and put his bag on the bed. I walked away after that. To the car's side. From the front window of the house, I could still see the family across the street. Door in front. Wilbur becomes upset when Leona cries, and the little child. Looking around the corner. "To get the truck ready?" I asked, "Are you ready?" Amos responded, "I've been ready for 3 years." Whispered as I pulled my coat tighter around his shoulders. I drove out of the driveway and onto the street, moving around the other car. Families that were normal were probably having quiet Thanksgiving dinners in homes that were decorated for the holiday. The radio. The music was still rock. The heater worked perfectly in every way. And Amos talked for the first time since I got there. He looked like he could breathe. "Thanks, Grandpa," he whispered softly as we switched lanes to proceed to the road. "I can't believe you came to get me. I told you I would come sooner. I meant what I said. I should have realized what was going on. I tried to tell you. I tried to show you, but I couldn't." For a time, we drove in silence. The weight of family that I know. Like Martha's beloved quilt, I felt the weight of duty on my shoulders. Someone had to take care of and safeguard this youngster. He had a safe place to get better and become the man he was supposed to be. As we got on I-75, I asked, "What about college?" "North. What are you studying?" "Engineering." His voice got louder when he talked about education. "Doing engineering work like you used to do at the plant, like your grandpa, like your kid." This made me happy. "I don't know how to pay for school, Grandpa, but we'll figure it out. Don't worry about it. I guess I want to be a pain. You're not a hassle, son. You're family, and family takes care of each other." The spacing between the two vehicles was smaller than usual because they were both stopped next to each other. As we came in, though, the home itself appeared to glow with welcome. I was pleased I had left the light on in the entryway because it was a habit. That little light that shone through the blackness of winter. I said, "Home sweet home." The key went into the lock effortlessly as he helped Amos carry his bag to the front door. Warm air surged out to greet him. The house smelled like coffee and Martha's lavender sachets as soon as we came in. It wasn't much, a basic house with old, worn-out furniture and carpet, but it was paid for and it operated. "Do you remember where the guest room is?" I said as I turned on the lights. "Yeah, down the hall next to your room," I remarked as we walked past the living room. Amos smiled and looked around. "It's there. It's so hot here. Grandma always advised to keep the thermostat at 72 all year. It wasn't worth it to be cold in your own home." When I showed him the way, the guest room was ready for him. There are additional blankets in the closet if you need them. The room was modest but nice, with a double bed and one of. There was a trunk, Martha's blankets, and a reading chair beside the window. The walls were covered in images of family occasions, including photos of Amos at different eras. This was usually his room when he came to visit, and seeing him here today made me feel. I said, "I'll start dinner." It seemed appropriate in a way that it hadn't since Martha died, not very fancy. She responded, "I have chicken in the freezer and vegetables that need to be used up." I could see how he could help. He truly wanted to work and earn his keep. "Sure, but you don't have to. This is your home now, not a job." We worked together in the kitchen, and as the day went on, Amos's shoulders started to feel better. I heated up He washed the vegetables while I placed the chicken in the microwave. We moved around each other like families do. Persons who had cooked together in the past. I added spices to the dinner and said, "Tell me more about what's been going on." "Chicken. Start with the beginning, when your mom married Wilbur." Amos was quiet for a long time, as if he were thinking. To give what they want. It started out small. I loaded the dishes wrong or I left my phone are small things that can make a big difference. Putting your shoes in the wrong place. After that, it got bigger. How much bigger? He is in command of everything, including what I eat and when I eat. I can take a shower when I can use the phone. Amos's voice sounded softer as he continued. Mom had to choose between him and me. She chose him. I had to stop seasoning the chicken and hold on to the counter. What do you mean she chose him? Do you remember how quiet I was when you came over last Christmas? Dinner? Wilbur said I couldn't talk if no one asked me a direct question. Mom didn't say anything. Do whatever it takes to stop him. It hurt so much to remember that thinking. I trusted Amos. Was just a teenager who gets cranky sometimes. Afterward, Martha and I joked that kids nowadays don't do that. Talk to people. Why doesn't your mom fight back? Because she's terrified. Amos started to cut. Chopping carrots with perfect precision. She once informed me that if she broke up with him, she would have to move, go back to the apartment building where we used to reside. She doesn't have enough money to take care of us on her own. I put the chicken in the oven and kindled a fire in the living room stove. I did my usual thing of reading the newspaper and I told them to come sit with me as I stacked wood to settle down my racing mind. Tell me about the good things while the fire crackled steadily. Talk about your pals in school. Amos smiled for the first time all day when they sat down in the comfortable recliners by the fire. I made the dean's list. A friend of mine named Jake is teaching me how to play the guitar. Your grandma has always wanted to study. I pointed to a picture on the wall of Martha when she was 20 years old, laughing and holding an acoustic guitar. She said that music communicated to the soul. I remember that. Because I miss her, I looked at the photo again with new eyes. You do too, son. They talked about Martha and discussed arrangements for Amos's spring term until the chicken was ready. People were talking and laughing in the house again, just as when Martha was there to fill the quiet. We sat down to have our basic but delicious supper, and I gazed across I genuinely looked at my grandson in the eyes. I wasn't scared anymore, and I saw something I hadn't seen in a long time. Years of hope. As I carved my chicken, I added, "We'll call the college tomorrow. Make sure your money help is. We'll take care of everything, and if you want, we'll look into getting you a part-time job. You don't have to do any of this, Grandpa." "Yes, I do." I stared at him across the table. "That's why we're family." We were just finishing dinner when the phone rang. It was a last-minute call regarding a pie I found in the freezer. Even though it was a pretty tranquil night, Amos got tense right away. I felt my jaw tighten when I read Leona's name on the caller ID. 3 firm knocks on the front door broke the fireplace. It wasn't a friend's warm hug This wasn't the soft tap of someone who wasn't sure, it was the hard beating of someone who wanted to give in right now. He almost dropped his coffee cup. "Grandpa, stay behind me," I said as I set down my. They got their own cups and walked toward the door. The banging came again, this time louder, and the sound of. I heard a lot of noises at my front door. I switched on the porch light and looked through the crack. To be uniform. There were 2 police officers on my doorstep, and Wilbur was behind them, ready to attack at any moment. The main police officer exclaimed, "Mr. Burke. We need to talk to you, police." I took a big breath. I opened the door, but I made sure that they couldn't see Amos. "What can I do to aid the police?" Wilbur immediately stepped forward and pointed at me. "This individual took my stepson away, officer. He broke into. They came to our house and abducted the boy without asking us beforehand." The chief officer, a middle-aged man with tired eyes, got up, putting his hand out to calm Wilbur down. "Sir, we need to fix things. Hello, Mr. Burke. Is there a young man named Amos Green that lives here?" "That's what I said. My kid is here." He held him hostage, and Wilbur's voice got quite loud. "Broke. Like a burglar, he broke down our door and snatched the boy away from his family." "Is the boy here? By themselves?" The second cop pulled out a notepad and inquired. Amos stepped up next to me before I could say anything. Wrapping up with the couch blanket. There was no noise, but you could hear him. "I'd like to go see my grandpa." Wilbur's face got hot. "You can see that he's been." Lies that made the youngster despise his own family. "What are the lies?" I made a little move forward. "The truth about the 4 hours you left him outside in the cold. The truth about how you've been hurting him for 3 years. Abuse?" Wilbur laughed, but it didn't sound real. "I taught him being responsible. The kid ruined our whole Thanksgiving dinner, and he needed to learn that his actions have repercussions." Stuff. The first cop stared at us like he'd been through too many family breakups. Disagreements. "Mr. Burke, everyone has to come inside so we can talk about this the right way." I stepped back. I didn't want to, but I let the cops into my house. Wilbur followed immediately away, and Leona was soon behind him. With her gaze on the ground. It looked like she had gotten smaller in some way, like a woman who finally understood how much her decisions had really cost her. The officer then took out his notepad. "Let's start at the beginning. You say that this individual stole your child away, Mr. Green. Of course. Wilbur straightened his shoulders and put on what I knew was his usual way of acting as a leader. When I got home from work, my front door was smashed and Amos was gone. Someone in the area informed me they observed a man was pushing a boy into a truck. Forcing? I was stunned and couldn't stop being shocked. Police officer, I saved my. That's what he keeps saying, Wilbur replied sadly as he shook his head. But the truth is that he is. He never liked that I married his daughter. He's been looking for any chance to cause trouble. When I turned back, I spotted Amos standing close by. I could tell he was shaking. Son, did this man make you? To go with him? No, sir. Amos's voice was very low. He saved me. What did it keep you from? Amos stared at both Wilbur and the police with fear in his eyes. From freezing to death on the front porch. The second cop stopped reading his paper. Explain that. I accidentally burnt the turkey. Hello. Wilbur made me wait outside in the cold while I thought about what I did. It was 5 degrees outside for over 4 hours. Wilbur promptly remarked, he's not telling the truth. He was there for approximately an hour. Put on some warm garments. 1 hour? I looked at him. Officer, I have proof. When I arrived there at 3:15, my grandson was sitting on the porch in jeans and a flimsy shirt. He had been there since 11 a.m. Hello. The first cop looked at Wilbur again. Did you actually make the young man sit outside, sir? Like a punishment? Yes, in short. But he's making things sound worse than it really was. It has been very cold for a few hours. Wilbur's air of assurance began to show some cracks. Hey, teens need rules that are quite rigorous. I agreed with his mother that she didn't agree to anything, Amos said with a louder voice. You went forward anyway, and she didn't stop you. Everyone turned to gaze at Leona, who had been quiet the whole time. The whole time they were talking. She stood in front of the door with her hands tightly gripped, ready to go. Ma'am, the cop asked. Leona asked, what do you think happened? Like a lady on the verge of a cliff, knowing that what she said next would decide if she stepped off. Back to safety or into the void. She stared back and forth between Wilbur's excited expression and Amos's eyes were full of hope. Mrs. Green, the first police officer stated in a low voice. We need to. I know what really happened today, Wilbur remarked. He came in closer to his wife, and I could see that he was scared. Way he stood so that he was taller than her and how serious his eyes looked. Tell them, honey. Say it to them. The way your dad has been turning Amos against our family. The police officer saw it too. Sir, please take a step back and let. Leona responded, let your wife speak for herself. Whisper. She shook her head and tried again. Amos did burn the turkey this morning. And the officer inquired. Wilbur was really mad. She swiftly stared at her spouse with her eyes away. He informed Amos that being outside will help him learn how to take care of himself. It's very cold outside. Leona nodded sadly. After that, Wilbur warned him to be more careful. How long did he stay? Please go outside. Another glance at Wilbur, who was standing still and upset for no reason. Since. Around 11. How long will it take? Until my dad got there. She was having a tougher time talking. Every syllable. About 3:15. The police officer did some math in his head quickly. In 5 degrees weather, more than 4 hours. Wilbur, she's making it sound worse than it was. Stepped in. If he had said sorry and acted improperly, he could have come inside at any time. Leona answered, no, he couldn't. Said something out of the blue, which made everyone stare at her. You locked the door and told me not to let him in no matter what. What? After that, there was no sound. Wilbur's face grew pale. It started off white, then turned red, and finally went back to white. Leona, he whispered, but his voice was too soft. What are you up to? He said. I'm telling you the truth, she said, looking at Amos. I could see that she was about to cry. For the first time in 3 years, I'm being honest. The police officer leaned in a little. Mrs. Green, does this type of Have you ever been punished? Yes. This word came out abruptly, like if she had been holding it off for years. He has made. Amos sleeps in the garage or basement. He has locked him out of the house for the night. She spoke loudly. Every time they tell the truth. He tells Amos when to eat, when to take a shower, and when to go to bed. It's fine for him to converse at the table. Leona, stop talking. Finally, Wilbur took off his mask. In every way, you don't know how to accomplish anything. You will break everything we made. What we've done. She turned on him with fierce rage. What else have we built besides anguish and fear? Check out my child. Look at what you done to him. When his mom eventually stood up for him, I could see Amos's expression transform. 3 years of. He thought his self-hatred and mistrust went away when he realized that someone else could see what he had been through. The first police officer got up and walked up to Wilbur. Sir, please turn around and place your hands behind your back. Your back? This doesn't make any sense. Wilbur stepped away from the door. You're going to take me into custody because of what a rude individual said. The old dad and his insane son. Based on solid evidence and a number of witness statements that support it. Putting a child in danger, the officer replied nonchalantly as he took off his cuffs. You have the option to be quiet. He explained Wilbur what he could accomplish and then took him to the door. Then he turned back to Leona and seemed quite angry. You will. I'm sorry for this lie. You will lose everything. The mansion, the money. All of it. You'll be nothing without me. I'd do anything to keep you from hurting my son, she said. The police left, just like the strong mother who had raised Amos by herself for the first time in years. And their prisoner, leaving only the three of us in my living room. Leona sat down in a chair and started to cry. She was crying, but not the soft, peaceful tears she'd shed previously. These were deep and severe. Amos went right up to her and knelt down next to her chair. She cried like she had been injured for a long time. Don't worry, Mom. It's over now. She added, I'm so sorry, through her tears. I should have protected you, she said, I should have been stronger. I told her, you were strong tonight. You chose your son over your husband when it mattered most. That took a lot of courage. My house hadn't felt like a home in months, but the fire in the great room made it feel like one again. Not only because my family was secure, but also because the truth was being shared and justice was being done. From where he was sitting next to his mom's chair, Amos gazed up at me. Now what, Grandpa? I asked. Now we heal. He answered, we take our time and heal. 4 months later, the sun came up in the morning. While Leona made pancakes on the griddle and Amos read his book at the table, the light came in through my kitchen window. He got an acceptance letter from Ohio State engineers. He stated full scholarship 10 times that week. That's what happens when you're still not sure, they're paying me to go to school. Leona put a stack of pancakes on his plate and said, be smart and work hard. She looked different today. Her part-time job at the library made her stronger and more confident. It set her free in a way she had never been before, and the divorce settlement money gave her a fresh start. Your grandma would have been so proud of you. I was proud, I stated as I sat down with my coffee. The kitchen felt like it was alive again, like it hadn't since Martha died. Plenty of talking, laughing, and the normal turmoil of a genuine family. Leona had moved in for good after Wilbur was found guilty. She had moved into the guest room, and we had made the basement into Amos's proper bedroom. Not like Wilbur's jail cell, but a pleasant place to stay with adequate heating and windows that let in light. Opened, Leona came to the table and inquired, Dad, are you sure you don't mind if we stay here forever? I know you like to be alone, but I meant it when I said, independence is overrated. What family is important? Also, who else is going to keep an eye on Amos when he cooks to make sure he doesn't set the kitchen on fire? Amos once got into a fight with a chuckle, and the fire was extremely small. The phone rang. Leona answered the phone. Burke's residence. Hi, Jake. Yes, he is here. Strings. Work out at 4? Yes, I will tell him. She picked up the phone and glanced at us. Jake, your friend wants to know if you're still alive. I practiced for the talent show. The talent show? I gave them a raised glance. I hadn't heard anything about it. Amos smiled and looked more like the confident young man he was meant to be. It wasn't a huge thing. Jake. It's just me and an acoustic set. You probably remember some of the old rock tunes I'll be playing. I'll be in the front row. Leona was getting ready to start a new family in the living room after breakfast. We had a picture of Amos's high school graduation on the mantel next to Martha's pictures. We missed one from our fishing trip last month and one from Christmas morning because of Wilbur. I inquired if Wilbur had called, but it's been years since we had a real family Christmas. I might not have wanted to know. His lawyer called yesterday. The anger management class seems to be going well, but... She shrugged and didn't seem too worried when he got fired from the grocery store. He's heading back to Ohio to live with his sister. Okay. It's better to be farther away. I feel. She said she felt awful for him sometimes. I do too, but then I remember what he did to Amos and I don't feel bad anymore. Amos was practicing his guitar while Leona and I worked in the yard that afternoon. We were getting ready for Martha to come over. There are vegetables in the garden. This year, spring came early, and planting seeds made me feel hopeful. Formulating plans for expansion. Dad, Leona exclaimed as she picked weeds with all her strength. Thank you. I said, thanks again for what you did. You don't need to thank me if you didn't come that day. This is what any grandfather would do, I said. But you weren't. You put everything on the line to save his life. If you had been caught, you could have been prosecuted with kidnapping, but I wasn't. The truth always wins in the end. Conclusion. She grinned and wiped the dirt off her hands. Martha used to call her A. She was a brilliant woman, smarter than me, at least. That night, we did what we always do, we had dinner together and then we watched whatever movie or game show was on TV at the moment. It wasn't engaging or fancy, but it was what we did. Amos had his guitar out, and everything was safe, quiet, and predictable. Leona worked on a crossword puzzle in the corner while I read the newspaper. This was just another day at home with my family. That seemed inconceivable a few months ago. Grandpa, Amos said during a commercial break, I've been thinking about you. I want to switch my major from engineering to social work or something similar. He stopped playing his guitar and looked at me seriously. I want to assist. I was so proud that I almost passed out. There are other youngsters going through the same things I did. This young man might be sad and angry. He wanted to use everything he had been through to help other people. I inquired. Your grandma always said that the best way to get over your own suffering is to help others avoid it. Did she truly mean that? Yes, she did say that. She also stated 1,000 other smart things that I should have paid more attention to. As the night went on, Amos and I went outside to the back porch to look at the stars. Leona fell asleep in her chair. I discovered him chilling on Wilbur's door that awful Thanksgiving. It was clear and cold that night, but not as dreadful. Are you ready for the start of fishing season? I asked. I can't wait. Do you think we'll catch something bigger than we did last year? Most likely catch a whale. We stood there in silence. 2 generations of Berkman had found. The truth and problems pulled them back together. Amos would be heading to college in a few months, and he will one day make his own life and family, but for now, the base was strong because it was built on honesty and safety. Grandpa, Amos murmured as we closed the door behind us. It's the kind of love that doesn't expect anything in return. Thank you for coming to collect me. When we locked up for the night, the house was warm and bright. 3 people who discovered that family is more than just DNA, it's about being there for one another when it matters. You have to be honest and keep the people you love safe no matter what. Martha would have agreed. If you like this article, please click like on the video, subscribe, and share. Leave a comment with your thoughts on this tale. To read the next story, click the box on the left. Thanks for watching.